Peace and welcome to Mana Sisters TV. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, my name is Adrian.
I'm Zora.
And we were compelled to make a video. I've made quite a few videos before. Well, I don't say quite a few. A handful probably. And this is kind of a continuation of doing an analysis of celebrity charts from a human design perspective. If you don't know what human design is, I'll give you a really quick, elevator speech about it. Human design is a system that is a synthesis of a lot of ancient systems, including astrology and the I Ching and the Kabbalah. So basically, it's supposed to be a map of a person based on when they were born. So even though it's kind of like a map, it doesn't tell you the future, it doesn't tell you what's going to happen, but it does tell you about features of that person. And so today we made a decision to talk about another celebrity. So I've got some other videos and I'll make sure to link them down below, but I did a brief analysis of Jada Pinkett Smith, also Will Smith, also Cardi B. And so our next person, it's really interesting too, now I'm just starting to notice it. The next person we're gonna do is Kanye West. And out of the 4 people that I've done analyses on, 3 of them are projector types.
That's interesting.
It is very interesting, probably because they're very influential people.
And also, this video is gonna be live to you guys, but we're recording this now prior to this live session, but we will be in the comments answering your questions. So definitely get to commenting. Hello to all the people who are joining us. So what are we starting with?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, we wanted to talk about Kanye West. Why? Because Kanye West is really making some huge waves right now. And I've seen a lot of commentary and a lot about what's going on with him in the news. And so I thought it was like, let me just take a look into this guy, because he is, of course, enigmatic. Over the last 15 years of his career, there's been all sorts of ups and downs. We've seen him have very public breakdowns. We've seen him switch gears a few times. Let us not forget 808 Heartbreaks, because there are people, his original fans really hated that album. And we'll get to why that's a really key indicator to something that we are seeing in his chart. So first off, I think I started off telling you that Kanye West is what we would call a projector. And projectors are here to actually manage other people's energy. So they also are here to gain mastery of something, and to be recognized is a very big part of their trip. So to be recognized, to have mastery, and to be invited to basically not only do what their thing, but to manage other people's energy.
Mm-hmm.
You're a projector.
I am a projector. So really looking at Kanye is kind of like, I don't know. Do I stand? Perhaps I stand.
Right.
He out here making moves.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I've never purchased a Kanye West album. Not to say I have not listened to a song. Like, there are certain songs that you couldn't get away from. Like when he first came out, I think Jesus Walks was the first song I'd ever heard by Kanye West. No, Through the Wire, which is really has a really fascinating story. Like, he at that time had become a prodigy under Jay-Z, and he was producing and creating beats for other people. And then he got into a really terrible car accident, and his first rap song ever is called Through the Wire, because he was rapping through a jaw that was wired shut. Like, that is actually pretty phenomenal. I had no idea. I enjoyed that song. It was very sound rich, like a lot of his songs are. Very very saturated with sound. Or that during that phase of his career, because he actually got to more simple sounds, but even then there was still this kind of vocal sound saturation that he's really well known for. So he's been doing this for a long time. and he's clearly mastered his craft. But we noticed like sometime, maybe 10 years into this career, he started to, have the kiss of death that happens to projectors, which is, the way they operate is that they need to be invited. They need to be invited to come and manage other people or to be wise counsel, give advice or whatever. And he was starting to be disinvited partially because of his very erratic behavior. So I remember there was an interview where he talked about that. Like no one was calling him up to come to places, and he felt really put out, and it hurt him a lot, because what happens is if you have a projector that's not getting invited,
that's where you get bitter projectors.
Yeah.
Very unfun.
Very unfun. And I'm going to say that there's a high likelihood that during much of the time that Kanye West has been in the public eye, he probably has been somewhat bitter.
Probably.
Even though on the other side of what a projector could have, like you get this bitterness, but their signature is success, which without a doubt Kanye West has. So, but when he was going through that very dejected phase, that was definitely a buildup of bitterness. And, with all human beings, whether you know human design or not, when you're operating against your own true nature, there's a lot of resistance that happens. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was what was happening. So looking at Kanye West's chart, and we see, actually, first of all, one of the things that jumps out at me about his chart is that he has 7 undefined centers. So if you're really familiar with human design, the centers, you already know what that means. But if you're not, the centers are kind of like your chakra points. And he has 7 of them that are open and receptive. And open and receptive typically means you're here to become wise about things. How do you become wise? How do you become wise?
You interact with people who have those centers filled in.
That's part of it.
And specifically for a projector, it involves mastery of a certain skill, a skill that'll get you invited to things.
Mm-hmm. Also, you get wise by doing dumb things.
That's true.
You're so young. You have no idea. Like you get wise. I mean, it would be lovely if the road to becoming wise was just sitting at the feet of masters or mastering a thing. That's part of it. But a lot of times
you make mistakes along the way when you're trying to master something.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. He has a profile of 1-3. Again, if you know human design, basically these are people who research and experiment, and they get bumps and bruises along the way, and the bumps and bruises are lesson points. So this is something that is expected of Kanye West. So I would say that no matter what your design is, you're going to live out your design no matter what. Whether you're living it to get the signature part, which is like for him, success. And success doesn't necessarily mean no turmoil, especially for projectors.
In fact, it possibly has nothing to do with the level of turmoil. Success might look crazy. Success might not even necessarily be pleasant, which is super crazy. Success is you did the thing and you did it well, and you executed essentially, and there's a sort of emotional response. Well, I'm saying that because I'm an emotional projector. Kanye might be feeling something completely different, but there's definitely a response in the body to when you have been successful at something, and it's not a sensation that lasts. It's a sensation you kind of have to keep encountering for you to not really fall straight into bitterness, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost, I'm not going to call it an addiction, but it's something that is,
it's like a cup of coffee.
Yeah, you don't stop. This is something that keeps going. Okay, so.
This isn't coffee.
It is not coffee. They wouldn't even believe what's in that cup. I'm just joking. So speaking of that, she says, oh, she's an emotional projector. And everyone, no matter what type you are, it is about your body and these feelings in your body and your body chemistry. For Kanye, he's a splenic projector. And splenic projectors are all about, I mean, anybody who has splenic authority, basically what feels good right now. And so for him, he really is always checking in on his body to feel, is this a yes or is this a no? Now, when he was going through being in the hospital, being addicted to painkillers, even unfortunately the things with grief, just all of that stuff, because it was wearing down his body. And, he was in a lot of stressful situations. We as non-celebrities don't understand the pressure of being a celebrity, especially at that high of a level. And he was experiencing,
especially going through all of that like publicly. That does not sound pleasant.
It doesn't sound pleasant at all. So he was, I would say that, that was his body revolting against him, because typically people with defined spleens and someone who's a splenic authority has actually typically really good health. But he was having a lot of health, and not just mental health issues, but he was actually experiencing physical exhaustion and things like that. The other thing is, because he's got all those open centers, again, that means that he is having to become wise about a lot of different aspects of life. One, thinking about things that don't matter, because he's got an open head, basically trying to solve other people's problems. He's got that in the open head and ajna. The speaking just kind of out of turn, or, it's really funny because speaking, the throat center is about communication, right? So he's probably had a lot of communication issues, but
especially, clearly, but also especially because of this. Which channel is that? That's the
4323.
Yeah, the 4323. He only has the 43, which that would make everything he says come out a little crazy, because as you're probably about to say, that channel is called the Freak to Genius. The part he has is the freak part. So when he talks, it just sounds crazy. It's hard to listen to him and find genius, but if you can manage, it's actually in there. I promise.
So his authority, like how he's supposed to operate, is always in the moment. He's not about the past. In a way, the spleen is about the now, but it actually has an eye to the future. But it's all about how he feels right now. And most likely, in the earlier parts of his career, when he was going through so much turmoil, he was being pulled this way and that way. There's just a lot of very interesting things there. The other thing is, he's got only one channel defined here. And that's between two of the defined centers. His defined centers, which is going to surprise some people or not, one is the spleen and the other is the ego center, or the heart center. And I've heard people have conversation about like Kanye's ego. Like, oh, his ego's out of control. No, his ego's probably in control. And it's actually a reliable place for him to make decisions from, which is really crazy. So even though he has splenic authority, which is in the now, but it's tied into his ego. Like, Kanye West should only do what Kanye West wants to do. And it doesn't mean...
he knows that.
And he knows... And
knows that.
And see, this is the thing. Like, I don't think he knew that before, because what he's saying now is a lot different than what he was saying. If you look at previous interviews, he's being yay crazy. But right now, if you listen to him, there's a certain level of like, there's equanimity, right? So I want to call it peace, but it's not peace. He moves his body a lot. He's, very animated, and he's very passionate, but he's, this little connection, which is, the connection is like a salesperson, and it's about selling ideas to the tribe. On one side, the part that connects to the spleen is the gate 44. If you know human design, that makes sense to you. If not, I'll explain it a little bit. This is about sensing who you should be connecting with, who is your tribe. And then the 26 is the ability, it's an egoic thing. It's his only activation in his ego. And it's all
That's all
about, and it's all about being able to sell and convey ideas that are for the tribe. Now, if you're listening to Kanye West's recent, advisements, towards Black people, he's telling Black people, you shouldn't just vote Democratic. One of the interesting quotes that he says is, the most racist thing a person could tell me is I'm supposed to choose something based on my color, which this is like that freak speaking.
Yeah, because what he's saying objectively is true, but in context of all the the political climate, people will hear that and be like, okay, but that sounds crazy though. But he's right. He is right.
I mean, he's right. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. You don't have to, because one other thing he says is, we should learn to agree to disagree. So back to his open centers. So the G center is about love and direction. It's completely open. He has no activations there. So Kanye West, even though it looks like, no, it doesn't look like he has a clear direction in life at all, because he doesn't. And he's very much influenced and impacted by the people around him.
But honestly, now that he's done Jesus is King and is basically, it's like he must have found mastery of his G center somewhere along the way, because it seems like the direction he's going in is really like launching him into something grand.
Okay, don't say it.
I won't say it yet, but that's a little teaser for later.
Oh my goodness, because she's right. So, again, so he's got as all projectors, they don't have a defined sacral center. That means that his ability to work is like he probably can work hard and long, because he also has a completely open root center, but he doesn't have the energy that a generator does. And that's another type in human design. All of these are places where, like, if you have the openness there, you could potentially experience addiction or really, I'm looking here, he knows he wants connection, because there's something that hangs off his sacral center in his conscious part of his design. He longs for connection, but because he doesn't have the defined center there, it could also lead to bad connections with people to get that connection met. So that's one of the other facets of human design. And again, I keep saying I'm gonna do a what is human design video. I think that'll come maybe right after this. So one of the things is I want to play a little clip, because one of the
wait, you're just not going to talk about the open emotional center?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. What are you talking about? Yeah, well, so an open emotional center is
an open emotional center. So right here it says avoiding confrontation and truth.
Yes.
And I think that's interesting, because as a person with a defined emotional center, I feel like I can't possibly imagine what that might be like. But knowing the way that I operate, it takes time for me to reach a conclusion or a truth. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine that not having an emotional center defined, it would be like almost trying to jump to the truth. Which
I feel real seen. Okay, yeah, you're right. Like jumping to the truth also kind of not.
And here it says avoiding confrontation and truth. Those are two extremes: either jumping to the truth or trying to avoid the truth.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I feel real. Okay. I didn't expect this. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me to talk.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. That. So, avoiding confrontation, avoiding the truth, jumping to the truth, thinking you already know the truth, and also.
And I guess jumping to confrontation too.
Yes.
Does Ye want to fight? Probably.
Probably. Or also suppressing it, because like the thing about the emotional center, the emotions are. People think about emotions as. Just the way that they're expressing, but a lot of it is what we're feeling in our bodies.
Feeling along with the tribe to a certain extent, mm-hmm. like communally.
Yeah.
The solar plexus is a very communal center, as opposed to the spleen, which is a very individual center.
Mm-hmm.
So That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and I love that. So he's got the open root, and it's completely open, so it doesn't have any connections to it, which would imply that, you know, to become wise about, you know, working and when to stop working. Like when I think about this center, because it's a pressure center, it's the pressure to get everything done, and when you get wise about that, in a day you get done what you know, this amount that you can get done, and then you know you can leave the rest for later. It's almost a wisdom about our mortality, because
yeah, it's like you're gonna work today, you're gonna work tomorrow, you're gonna work forever. There's always gonna be something to do.
Yeah, and when you die, your to-do list will not be finished. That's the message of the open root esoteric.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean,
so I'm gonna.
That's okay. That's really just okay.
Right. So one of the things, like the point of human design and studying yourself and all of that, is to get to a point where you have differentiated yourself from other people. Understanding, yes, you know, you get to a certain point, it's like, yes, we're all one, we're all together, but you are a specific expression of the universe. And I found this...
It's really interesting, because there's a clip that we don't have queued up here. There's a clip I've seen before of Kanye talking in like a classroom setting. This is while he was donning the MAGA hat. He was talking to a group of Republican students, or like right-leaning students, and he was saying something very interesting, which kind of contradicts what another popular right-wing speaker says. But he was basically like, we can either organize our society like ants, or we can organize like crabs. So basically what he was saying is we can either communally support each other, or we can try and go for every man for himself, which I find extremely interesting, because I said the spleen was a very individualistic circuit, but it really seems like that salesman line really kind of gives Kanye the balance of both. It's like he knows that there is a value to individuality, but he also knows that you don't really have individuality if you're alone.
Yeah, individuality is based on someone else. And the thing about that line is, it's really interesting that you kind of picked up on that, even though so in human design, there are circuits kind of based on Kabbalah, right? Like the or Kabbalah, I was corrected one time. But on where the spleen is all these individual circuits, but that particular circuit is part of the tribal circuit. So that it's one of the money lines, and it is part of the tribal circuit, and it is absolutely about that. But it's about understanding that you group up in tribes, or with like people. So understanding, yes, we're all individuals, like all the individuals in an ant colony, but we're working together towards a common goal or something like that.
Yeah, because the nice thing about ants is they're very democratic. They vote.
They do. They vote.
Basically, it's like one ant commits an action, and if the other ants agree, the other ants also commit that action. And if they don't agree, they commit whatever action they feel is right. It's very... Go Kanye.
Yeah. So what I would say is, like, one of the points of, say, human design is to, say, like, stop your mind or kill your ego, because those are buzzwords that people use, but it is about putting your mind in its place. Your mind is great at calculating. And when I say calculating, I mean, like, it's been funny. Like, I've been going shopping and pull the exact amount of money out of my like, I knew how much it was going to be. Not that I sat there and used my own consciousness to do it, but it was like my mind,
unconscious faculty was working in the background, like a background app.
But it's the same thing when you park you back into your parking space. You're doing all these calculations that you're not out there with a piece of paper like, okay, I've got
this is the angle I need to back up into, and this is when I need to turn the wheel, and this is how much I need to turn the wheel so I don't hit these other cars.
Right. So that form of calculation is fine, but when you are using your mind to build your life and operate your life, quite often there's issues with that. So the first clip I'm going to play is where Kanye kind of describes that. So here we go.
In my opinion, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying based on how other people are going to feel. I'm just saying how I feel. And who you know do that. I ain't calculating nothing. And God is using us to show off. I'm talking about when I was calculating things, I was ending up in debt. Next thing you know, I'm not even on Instagram. And Yeezy is the #1 Google search brand on the planet. Above Louis Vuitton, above Nike, above Adidas, Yeezy, and I'm not even a part of the culture. I'm canceled. I don't have no gram. I'm not on the gram. And it's the #1 brand. This joint, last valuation I got was $3 billion, and there's some people trying to buy it, so it must be worth 6. Hey, we gonna have to go on the line.
All right, so I'm stopping it there. But if you listen to that, that's the kind of language that you would expect from someone who's actually done the process of differentiation. Now, not to say that a person who's gone through the process of differentiation is walking around talking about it, but Kanye West, looking at his chart, that's one of the things he's going to do, because he is selling something. And it's he's selling a way for the tribe to be. And it's all predicated on his religion and his love of Jesus. Also, one of the things I would say, like, he's got some very specific definitions in his chart. So even though he's got this very open chart, he only has this one, channel. He's got some things in his chart that tell me that he is, first of all, supposed to be a leader. He's not subservient to anyone. He talks about how the only thing he fears is God. And part of that is because in his incarnation cross, which is another part of human design, this is a really important thing. It really talks about someone's life path, how their life is going to unravel. Well, he has a profile 1-3, which is, they call it a personal cross. It means it's about him. He's on his own private journey. It's not about the fact that he won't impact or influence other people. Influence is huge. That's it. That was the best word. He will influence people. But part of it is through his leadership and rulership. So rulership was kind of a little different.
That's his incarnation cross, the right angle cross of rulership.
Yeah. And so the energy of this cross is about taking power and controlling your piece of land, which I find very interesting, because he was just recently he's telling Black people, go buy some land. And someone said, well, did he buy some land? I think he bought like 18,000 acres. Okay, don't quote me on that, but it's a whole bunch
a
whole lot of acres in Wyoming. And he's planning on building a business and bringing his brand, which he mentioned in that clip we just played, the Yeezy brand.
It's really interesting he chose Wyoming.
It is interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to that.
Yeah, because
I'm foreshadowing. I don't know if y'all can see it.
You'll be taking it away in a minute. So, what was I saying? Okay, this may not be a whole country, and in fact may not be land at all, but you will be driven to have control of something. Ruling is what you're here to do. So the thing about rulership, and this is kind of like, back to some philosophical stuff. To become a ruler, you have to become, in some ways, subservient first. This is how you learn how to rule properly. And I think that, his relationship with Jay-Z, when they did that, I can't remember the name of the album, but it's like man duets the whole time. It's so cute. It's like, but I felt like it was like a
teacher student-y.
Yeah. And it was at that point where the teacher and the student, where the student is starting to say, okay, I'm achieving a certain level of mastery, or I need to break out on my own, because there's only so many lessons you'll get from this teacher. And sometimes you have to go and it's really interesting. You get taught in different ways. And, for some people who go on a spiritual journey, they will tell you they've been taught out in the ethers or in a dimension that's not here. So he's talking about a really super personal relationship with Jesus, as if Jesus is directing his actions, which, because he's splenic, so he's paying attention, maybe he's paying attention to what's happening right now, and then he's got this ego thing. If you take that lowercase will, that's what the Ego Center is about, your willpower, and you align that with divine willpower, there's nothing that's denied to you. So as we heard in that, it's playing. All right. So as we heard in that clip, he's kind of telling you, like, I'm not calculating it. The will of God is coming through me. These are very powerful indicators of someone who maybe perhaps has surrendered to what they are. Whether he knows his design or not, that's another thing. Anybody who chooses a path of surrender will, in fact, differentiate and be just themselves. So, a couple other things about his chart, and then we're going to move on to some some other stuff.
Some of the more, what's the word? Theoretical.
All this, well, okay.
All of this is theoretical.
Yes.
But a little less chart analytic, more conversational, theoretical. Yeah. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So one of the things I noticed about Kanye's chart is, so the way that human design works is there's conscious and unconscious. So in the unconscious area, which is the unconscious, is very highly related to your body, and that's what's running the show. He's got so many areas that are really super important that are in what we would call detriment. This is part of the reason I think that from an outside view, looking at Kanye, what he's doing, like, these things become successful. Like the Yeezy shoes and clothing are not cute to me. Are they cute to you?
Nah. The clothes, not so much. Some of the shoes, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe
Maybe
the
that's
ones
how...
that look like socks.
Okay, the ones that look like you like those. So, but what is driving his creativity leads him to create things that, honestly, we were talking about that freak part. The freak is sometimes ahead of its time. These are concepts and ideas that are ahead of its time. He's also got a piece of one of these abstract channels. It's a 6447, which is like the ability to, look back at the past, and you have that channel completely. He has this, the part that hooks into the ajna, which means he understands the concepts, not necessarily to get inspiration exactly. He does have an understanding somewhat of what has happened in the past and how it didn't work. Other unconscious parts he's got.
That's really interesting because that's in his earth.
You see what I mean?
That's like, real up front. I see.
It's super huge. Which is, and she's saying it's in his earth, so it's an earth placement in this unconscious body graph. What that looks like is, this is part of his purpose.
He knows what did not work.
Part of his Kanye's purpose, what didn't work, and it is to he's gonna bring that out just because that's the way he is. His looking at his north nodes, it's really interesting. He's starting to figure out, like, how am I gonna live the rest of my life, and being able to use instinct and intelligence, not making hasty decisions, and being persistent instead of just going with what was happening before. And I think he talks about that, and I'll make sure to link to it. This is it Big Boy TV?
I think it's Big Boy TV.
Yeah, I'm playing.
Big Boy TV. Yeah,
I'm playing these clips from Big Boy TV's interview with Kanye West. It's like a 48-minute long interview. I would completely suggest, if you have time, take a look at it, because this will line right up with some of that stuff. So one of the parts is that he's moving into kind of like what he's going to be doing probably for the rest of his life. Also, being that he's 42, he's moving into his, they call it Uranus opposition, the midlife crisis. And this is oftentimes where a person changes their identity completely, completely changes their identity.
How close is he up on that?
So it's supposed to be next year because it typically happens, 2020. So May of 2020. We're talking about
he's really close.
He's in it.
So he might just be already in it.
Well, the thing about it is, when we talk about these cycles in astrology or cycles in human design, there's a shadow, like a foreshadowing time. So this would have started almost maybe a year ago. And it
sounds about right.
Yeah, and it's going to go ahead and continue even longer, like a year out that way. So, or maybe 2 years this way and 2 years that way, because Uranus takes a long time to transit. So we're talking if you're talking about at 42, then his Uranus return will be at 84 years old. So it's one of those slow moving types of things. So that's one of the things.
Man, 84-year-old Kanye.
Can you even imagine? Talking about his South Node, so it's really interesting. South Node indicates like sometimes past life stuff or where you're coming from, and where North Node is where you're going. His South Node was all about increase, but it was all about self-fulfillment. It was all about me, self. And for him, he was probably very much, we call it not self, or very much in turmoil. And this would have been self-fulfillment as a strictly inner experience that blooms in the dark and can't be seen because of withdrawal. Like, you can think about the times when he would come out with an album, some really crazy stuff would happen, he would just fall back. But he was all about himself, which is actually not a bad thing. Part of it is that's his design.
Yeah, there's other interviews with other artists. One artist was the male rapper of Disick. They're a South African rap group. And he was talking about how he got invited to basically hang out with Kanye and Drake, and how at the time Kanye and Drake were both kind of on this like vibe of kind of like
we're amazing.
No, it was worse than that. It was like he was like, this is basically like the lamest, weirdest hangout I ever had with people. He was like, Kanye is kind of like real dejected feeling. Drake is kind of aloof and weird, and that does sound like just some real deep ass turmoil.
I know. So some other things, again, and I told you, a lot of these are in detriment. So his South Node is in detriment. So that was probably, he talks about, I was broke and I didn't have money because of, these decisions he was making, which were calculated. He was being played by an industry. He was like, they would know how much his house cost and make sure that the contract came in right around that, so you can get ahead, which is really interesting. The idea that someone's making millions of dollars, but because of like lifestyle choices and also this idea that they can get more, they make these decisions, this calculation, instead of just doing what feels right. And I don't want to talk too much more about all of his stuff, but oh my gosh, his stuff is
all really interesting.
Yeah. So
and honestly, y'all are sticking here with us.
Yeah, if you're still here.
I know you are. Not if you're still here. You're definitely still here.
So his moon, which is, I call it the attractor field. And also they say, it moves you and drives you on an emotional level. Y'all, for him, it's insight. So, in his not self, it's the urge for expressions that tend to be careless and that can distort his individual insight. I think that he's been experiencing some of that. But this last Big Boy interview was clear. Even though it might still be considered freaky, you can look at even the responses on this YouTube video.
People are vibing hardcore with it.
Oh my God.
3 million views, and there's just so much positive response to this.
Which is like, bless him. He's free and trying to free others. The light in him is shining bright and is kicking against the thorns. Y'all. First of all,
half of what he's saying, this is another comment, half of what he's trying to say could be summed up with, I don't live for what people want. I live for what God wants. And that's really just what he's saying in the interview. Because he was describing basically how he's said a few things like, oh, I told people to stop saying the F slur in raps in regards to gay people, right? But then I said, you my Chick-fil-A in this new album, and now everyone's like, oh, cancel me. And he said something else like, oh, I said George Bush doesn't like black people, but then I put on a MAGA hat, and all of a sudden people like just think I should be just canceled. And he's like, so I can't please nobody out here.
And it's pretty true. Like, he can't please. That's the whole thing.
Probably because I think he also described when he first was like, oh, stop saying the F slur. People were like, wait, Kanye, why you gay? And then when he was basically saying George Bush doesn't like black people, people were all on him for that too.
Yeah. So
even though it's probably true.
I mean, and whether you agree with him or not, he was saying things. He just was telling you how he felt. He was just saying how he felt. And in hindsight, a lot of the things he talks about, or that he has said, even if they came out really weird and wrong, were true. Also, when you have someone that's not really calculating, they will do things that don't make sense to you. Now, one of the most interesting things, I have like a dream mentor. It's a relationship psychologist. His name's Al Turtle. I love this guy. But he has a great article, and I'll post that down below, which is people make sense to themselves. And it might not be in the moment either, especially with that spleen running the show. With the spleen, you're supposed to do things and you don't think about them. If you second guess it, it doesn't come back and say, no, you really should do this. It's a one-time voice. So you have to be really still and quiet and kind of obedient. You just do it. It says, oh, don't make a left here, go right. You're all like, but where I want to go is to the left, blah, 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 blah. No, you got the message, you go right. And it sounds like when he said in that clip, I'm not calculating anything. I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm doing, y'all.
I'm just channeling God, y'all.
He's just
channeling God.
Right. So in this particular case, what you're going to find is, I think what I'm seeing is the unfurling of the genius of Kanye West, y'all. So that's the G word is a big word, because genius is what happens when one is completely in alignment within themselves. So one of the things about Kanye is his Mercury. That's how you communicate. Yeah, he's going to be probably at some point in time coming out with, he's going to have plans. And he said some things to people about things, oh, we're going to do this, and that. Or the other thing, because he's got this ego center defined, when he says things as crazy as you think they are,
they happen.
They happen. Also in this Big Boy interview, I believe they play him a clip, and the clip talks about, it's him 10 years ago, and he's like, oh, I don't know, in 10 years, I just want to be making music and product. And he said products too. Do not forget the products.
Don't forget the products.
He says, I'm a revolutionary Christian, and I want to be doing music and products for the church. 10 years later, he was 32 then, he's 42 now. That's what Kanye West is kind of doing, y'all. That's what Kanye West is kind of doing. So what I'm saying is, if words have come out of his mouth, listen only because they could potentially involve you. Because he's saying some pretty big and wild things. Now, there's some more in his chart, and you know what? Oh gosh, his Venus.
I feel like this is something we've discussed, not during this, but we were discussing Kanye West's Godhead, which this is deep into human design stuff, but his Godhead is Lakshmi, goddess of beauty and beauty and good, which I actually, now we're in this, I'm thinking about it. There's also another clip from, I mentioned him talking to some right-leaning students in a classroom, where he actually outright says, beauty has been stolen from the people. He says beauty has been stolen from the people, and that corporations should be serving the people. So Kanye West being very concerned with the beauty and good in the world, and we're about to get into his Venus, which is why I bring this up, and the values within himself and the world around him, it's very strong. Like, even though Kanye, he's talking all this craziness, he is really concerned with beauty and goodness.
For the people.
Kanye.
Oh Lord.
I stand.
Uh-oh. Oh God.
I've decided. I've gotten to this point. I stand.
So in his Venus, this is all about, it's gate 42 for human design people with a line 4. It's all about increase and growing, but it's the maturity to bring growth through mediation. So he is going to be a middleman. My thing is, I think that Kanye West is coming out now. He's the middleman for Jesus. Is he the middleman for Jesus? He might be. And so it's really interesting because even though,
because really, like the Sunday services he does, they draw in giant crowds, and the people who leave are like touched by Jesus. So he really is Jesus' whole ass middleman.
Oh my God! So, if you don't know about the Sunday service is the smallest ones are like 15,000. Well, no, it's not the smallest one because they did one in Detroit in at the Old Shane Park, or they call it the Aretha Franklin Pavilion. He's been doing this free kind of revival service all around the country. He's being invited by, and that's what Projector's like. They're being invited. He's being invited by churches. I just heard that he's been invited by Joel Osteen to come and do Sunday service at his mega church, which seats 50,000 people. I think the largest crowd he's done it for is 50,000, but on a regular basis, it's at least 17,000, 10,000 people, lots and lots of people.
Consistent giant crowd.
Right, and so here we'll listen to a little clip about why he started Sunday service.
Sunday service. When Jesus is king here, why did you start Sunday service? When I went to the hospital, one of the things that I wrote down was start a church in Calabasas. Now, this year, after this year, I 200 tweet, all this type of stuff, I was like, look, God, take the wheel. Yeah, people say, Jesus, take the wheel. I let Jesus take the wheel. And I didn't even know what it is meant to be saved. What it means to be saved. I didn't know what it meant to be saved. Like, I was talking about The Life of Pablo was a gospel album. And still it got a picture of a girl in a thong on a cover. I'm talking about this is a gospel album. But it shows you that people could want something and there's no one around standing up and saying, this is how you get it. Like it's people around us in the music industry that want to get out of debt, but ain't nobody saying this is how you get it. It's people who want to get out of being brainwashed, and they want to wake up for real, but ain't nobody saying this is how you get it. It's simple. The truth is right here in the word. So I was 4 months in, working on the album. I had the best luxury shock treatment of gospel possible. You know what I'm saying? 40 people singing, 60 people, 80 people singing about Jesus. And I had one of my friends come over, and we were just having a good time, and it's a good feeling. He said, man, it's just like one of them LA churches where everybody come around just talking about it's good. Where the word at, though? People gonna need some solid food. And then we started talking about Christ. And then my dad.
Okay, so we'll stop there. So, yeah, that was, oh my God, that was wild. So he's really functioning as a servant to bring the word and to bring this good feeling to people. The beauty of the service. And then, and it was really interesting by listening to that clip again, is that he's also seems to be very interested in making sure that they get the solid food too. He's like, I can bring you the beauty, but we're going to give you the substance with it. So the last,
that's what's good.
That is what's good. So the last part is his Venus. So I'm sorry, his Mars. His unconscious Mars is going to dictate actually his actions, how he behaves. And the thing about it is this matures over time, because this is something that is very influenced heavily by the unconscious stuff that we're carrying around if we're wounded, if we have issues. And whatever spiritual awakening Kanye West has had, holy shit, I can't believe I'm saying this. Whatever he's had potentially has cleared up some of this, because it starts off first as it's gate 49. Anybody knows what gate 49 is, human design. It's the gate of principles, and it is about emotional stability based on principles. And I think that once Kanye West, and he kind of talks about it in that one clip, once he aligned his actions with his principles, like he probably always just wanted to do a gospel album. He didn't want to do all the rest of the stuff, or he wanted to, he did it because he was calculating. Then at some point in time when he let go and let God, I can't believe, it's really interesting because I don't necessarily share these beliefs, but I can see what's operating with and for him. So if this is working for him, great. The principles, he's got line 4. It's the sensitivity to the needs of society.
Which is in his Mars, which is his actions. He is an intermediary between, for y'all and Jesus, he's an intermediary between the both of y'all, for y'all. Kanye is for the people.
Okay, listen, because I'm going to read to you the descriptions of this gate, and particularly with this line. The shadow would be formulating the needs of the community only to ensure their support, which usually is nothing but an empty promise, political party program. So this would be like if Kanye was saying things that he knew everybody would like, that would be him operating in his shadow. I don't think he's doing that. He is
all over the place.
The other part is if it's in the light, if it's the best expression of it, it's the sensitive potential to respond to the needs of the community, ensuring a just replacement of the old order.
Ooh.
So we're almost
there. We almost there. We're gonna talk about his Jupiter, his Saturn. What else we got?
No. We're not gonna talk about that because honestly, we could go deep and deep and deep. I'm gonna tell you
forever.
Forever. I can tell you one thing. I'm gonna say by looking at what I'm seeing displayed with Kanye, I'm seeing him be invited. I'm seeing him be successful. I'm seeing a level of equanimity in the man that we've never seen before. There is a difference. And for all the people that are dismissing this as Kanye being Kanye, blah, blah, blah. If you heard that other clip, the second clip, he talked about, start a church in Calabasas. Now, if anybody had thought that Kanye West could just start a church, nobody would ever thought he was going to start a church. But he wrote it down. You know what that's called? That's his willpower. He wrote it down. His spleen had him write it down, and his willpower made it happen. Now, Kanye West has been saying some other interesting things, y'all, that you might want to start paying attention, because he says a lot of shit, and he used to say a lot of shit that didn't make any sense. Honestly, he's probably the most sensical I've ever heard him right now. And when he tells you he's going to do a thing, Kanye West is going to do it. Kanye West, and And you know what? I don't even know if I have the clip or where I saw this, but he said, when I run for president
In 2024?
in
2024. Kanye West is about to run for president, y'all.
Are y'all ready? Are you ready? Are y'all ready for president?
Y'all ready for the receipts? Because I got all the receipts.
Okay, tell us.
Okay.
Because first of all, 2024, one, I feel like he chose that year so as not to cause a ripple in the force with anybody who's on the political playing field right now. Like Donald Trump is the president right now, even though he and Kanye don't have a real relationship. The MAGA hat thing kind of. How about this? It's calculated.
Kanye, to a certain degree, is a darling amongst right-leaning circles. Like, because of his. So what happened with the MAGA hat thing, right? Kanye West goes tweeting about how much he loves Donald Trump, how much he loves Candace Owens, how much he loves MAGA hat. He puts it on. It's great. But then what happens next? The next thing that happens over the next, like about a year. For the next year, Kanye basically goes on this kind of weird Republican tour. And I think this was his first like toe dip into this whole revival, born again Christian thing. That was like his first toe dip. But then what happened is he took off the MAGA hat and was basically like, I'm swearing off politics in behind all of what happened. This actually endears him to right-leaning people, because if you have ever sat in a right-leaning space and just watched what people say, something that's very common for them to say is that right-leaning people are being censored on like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, especially like this idea that Twitter is shadow banning people on the right for their views on their platform. So to them, they are seeing cancel culture in motion. They are like, oh my God,
They're feeling canceled.
They're feeling canceled through Kanye.
No, and it's not just through Kanye. They're feeling canceled because
in general.
But
with Kanye doing it, they're seeing it happen to a black man, which is a twofold thing. On the one hand, it's someone they perceive as being right-leaning, being canceled, and on the other hand, it's proof of Democratic like the party's hypocrisy, where basically there's this idea of the left eating itself. So Kanye, by virtue of being black, is assumed to be part of the left.
Yeah.
So it's a layered thing.
But what I'm gonna say is his
long story short, the right leaning people love Kanye.
Well, yeah, and I'm gonna say his actions are actually in a very strange way producing a form of cognitive dissonance, and we're not going to go too far into that, but there it's happening. So he dips his toe into politics and then he retracts very hard and then goes into doing church. Now, I'm not saying that he's doing it in a calculated way at all. I don't think he's planning any of this out. He's just
it's what he said, and now because he said it, he's on the path
to
doing it. Not because he formulated this in his brain or really even thought it out, maybe. It's
not even maybe.
It's what he said.
Yeah, he said,
so now he's gotta.
I'm gonna run for president in 2024. And so all of a sudden, everything that starts to align, because that's how the ego or will center works. It does work through the frequency of the voice or frequency of expression. And what happens is when the person says it, writes it, or whatever, and I've done it myself, I have actually ego authority. I've written things down and then go back and look a year later, that thing came true. And I put it away. I didn't even try. So he's already on a campaign trail, and it has a really amazing chance of success because of a few things. One is he's, in a way, alienated his original fan base, but he's also doing a revival of religion, which is dying. You know, we know that organized religion is experiencing a contraction, And not to say that's good or bad. For me, it's neither good nor bad. It's just a thing that's happening. But there are people who are right now hungry and really looking for some type of spiritual solace in a world where things are kind of upside down and really weird. So he's coming through first and doing that work. And so
it's so interesting because it's not just that he's doing that, because he's doing that, and people are coming out of it like, oh my God, this was a transcendent experience, right? But also it's the optics of it. The optics of it is Kanye West in front of these diverse giant crowds, getting all of them into what is essentially a Christian fervor. And the Christians in this country are seeing that, and they are loving it because they know that Christianity is contracting. They want people to be saved. Kanye is saving people, therefore he's on Fox News getting praise.
Absolutely. So
it's a whole panel of Fox News hosts, super white, all of them, and they're all heaping this praise upon Kanye West.
Like super duper smile.
You're such an effing hoe, I love it. Kanye West is getting praise
on Fox News.
On Fox News,
the most watched television outlet in America.
And that's what most people are watching. Kanye is having so much political exposure between his MAGA hat stunt and the little talks he did there and this Christian revival. Kanye West has a pretty decent chance at the presidency if he keeps this up.
And then
now your next question might be, Zora and Adrian, but what about Kim Kardashian? Isn't she just the least first lady you could have ever seen? And to that I say, Melania Trump. to that I say, clearly being naked and documented being naked actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. That doesn't make you less first lady like. But also, in addition to which, hold on, I hadn't really looked at Kim Kardashian's chart before. She's a generator, so projectors and generators have a very special relationship, meaning that it's really funny. There was a episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which I don't watch, but I turned on the TV and it was on, and there was, she was on The View, and I saw this as a video clip. She was on The View, and she talked about how they asked her, you were on your show, and Kanye said he didn't like what you were wearing, it was too sexy, and she responded to him during in the clip from the show, you made me this, because apparently, even though she was out in society and very fashionable, she was relatively modestly dressed before. If you can remember old Kim Kardashian style, she loved those bandage dresses, but she was covered up actually in a way, whereas this dress that she was about to wear to the Met was very see-through and very body conscious, and she was saying that to him. So it's so funny because it was him. He led her to this, and she moved slower on things. Okay, it's gonna take her a little bit more time to adjust, but trust me, her husband, she will. Not only will she, but it seems like she already is. Also, I didn't realize her incarnation crosses a cross of laws, which is very interesting. That's so interesting,
isn't it? If y'all know things about the Kardashians, it's basically like a lawyer family. Was it her father was the one defending OJ?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what Kim Kardashian is about.
Yeah. So that's a huge thing, I think. The things that we've already noticed is actually some, frankly, we would call it first lady-like behavior from Kim Kardashian. If you guys have been noticing, she's been in the news for she's pursuing becoming a lawyer through an alternative path because she's connected in such a way that she can do it. Apparently, she's pretty brilliant. She's also been instrumental in assisting with some social justice in terms of people who were incarcerated, who got really long sentences, and you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's actually two stories about that. The one that people are probably most familiar with is Alice Marie Johnson. Now, she is a 63-year-old woman who was put in jail for, I think her sentence was originally 30 years. She had been in prison for 23 on a first-time low-level drug charge. And that was back in 2018. And similarly, more recently, this was October 9th, so super recently, there was another inmate, a Washington, D.C. inmate who Kim Kardashian also helped. That's Momolu Stewart. Oof. He was 16 when he was convicted and sentenced to life for murder.
And so she helped to get
him also out of prison at age 39. He had served also about 23 years. And it's really interesting because there is an interview with Don Lemon. I called him John Lennon the other day. It was funny. He asked her, I believe it was him who was interviewing her. He asked her, so you are aware that there's a possibility that the Trump administration could use this communication of this woman's sentence, basically.
Commutation.
Commutation, odd words.
Yeah.
I have an approximate knowledge of all things. Basically, he was like, so you do know that it's a possibility that Donald Trump could be using this for PR, right? And there's this, it's a slightly funny moment where it's like Kim Kardashian didn't ever consider that. Like, so she just kind of sits there and pauses and she's like, I think. And then she kind of goes into how that's probably not going to be the case. And to a certain extent, she was right. No one ever talks about that clip anymore. No one really talks about what she did for this woman in context of the Trump administration, because I think people are actually intelligent enough to realize that this is something that Kim Kardashian has been fighting for since the Obama administration. It has nothing to do with Trump. It was truly her doing something good for this woman, and now also good for this man. So,
yeah,
Kim Kardashian she's looking more and more first lady-ish by the day, especially when you kind of look at what Melania is doing, which is
we'd be best.
Yeah, be best.
Be best.
I haven't heard anything about that. Because like when Michelle Obama was doing her whole nutrition thing across the country, you'd see her on TV all the time. She went on Chopped to talk about good nutrition.
Barbara Bush, you would sometimes see her a little bit.
Melania Trump, the only time she's really been in the news is to talk about like that terrible jacket, and also I won't even talk about it, but yeah, and her giving a speech, and also stealing Michelle Obama's speeches. I forgot about that one.
Oh yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope this didn't go too long. If you're still here, please subscribe. We'll probably harass you for that at other points too.
This is gonna be on YouTube. This is gonna be on Facebook. So wherever you're watching, thanks for joining us. Yeah,
thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. And please leave comments, ask questions.
Leave comments, like the page. This Mana Sisters International is the page. Check out links in the announcements, descriptions, all that stuff. There's probably gonna be a link to our store. We have merch. Some of it I drew by hand.
Oh Lord.
Y'all will love it. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for joining us so much. We appreciate you hanging around. Good night. Good night. I love you.
Oh my God. Let's do that over. So thanks so much for joining.